up, Dustin?
Not much. What's happening, man?
Not much, dude. I'm super excited for this combo. We spent a lot of time together last week. First of all, what do you think of the event that we went to? So for those that didn't catch last episode, we went to Coaching Con. But what was your take on the event?
I think it was super enjoyable. I liked several of the speakers. I was really looking forward to hearing them. Took away a lot of information. And yeah, I'm not big on the 3 days. I think like 1 or 2 days, like my mind was melted just
Yeah,
from information overload. But I came home, had a ton of notes, kind of started implementing some of them. But it was a
yeah,
great time. Great
yeah.
time.
I thought so too. I thought I talked about it a little bit in the last episode. I did like a solo episode, kind of recapping the event and several things that I've kind of pulled from the podcast so far. But I thought the event last year, and maybe it was just because like the different speakers was like the people that I've been kind of like following for a long time, and I was like super excited to hear them. So maybe I just like heard the things that they said, and I was like, that's awesome. That's amazing. But I think it felt like this year there was definitely a lot more, um, people that were meant to like help you build like energy, right, and go and like take action versus people telling you the actions to do, right. There was a couple of them that were speakers that I thought were good and really really actionable, and they were all good. I shouldn't say that, but it was I just really like the. I feel like you're kind of the same way. I really like I have kind of the action taking mentality or energy inside of me, and I just want to know like different actions I can take. So that was kind of my thing. But I thought the event was good.
Yeah, I agree, 100%,
Yeah.
100%. I was looking for the actionable steps. It's like, what can I go and implement right now? Nothing really seemed easy to consume.
Hmm.
Um, Again, I agree. It was more mindset driven, the energy level,
Yeah.
that type of thing. But yeah, it was still super enjoyable, and it was awesome getting to meet you and
Yeah.
going through all that stuff on a personal level more so than just a Zoom call.
For sure. Yeah. It's nice to get out of the routine and
Yeah.
get into just hanging out with some other people for sure. Okay, so let's talk about you. Let's talk about kind of the things that you've done. I want to start at the very, very beginning, though, where you grew up in Illinois, right?
So I grew up, so born and raised in Georgia. Uh,
Okay,
Graduated high school, moved to Illinois because my mom had remarried and she went
got it.
there. So, of course, I was kind of a mama's boy. I followed mom to Illinois,
Yeah,
and that's where I kind of, I guess, sunk in my roots, found my
yeah.
wife, started a family. So yeah, that's kind of where it all started.
And your family had, correct me if I'm wrong, it was a sawmill, right, in Illinois?
Yeah, so my mom had married into like a logging family.
Hmm.
They were, you know, I want to say fourth generation loggers, had a
Wow.
sawmill, lived in the timber, things like that. And it was definitely out of my element being from Georgia. It was more of a rural town in Illinois. So yeah, that's kind of where my story began. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
So that was your expectation, right? Like you were supposed to take that over or run that or talk about kind of what happened there. What was the evolution? Because you've gone on to do so many awesome things. Just in, we're going to talk about real estate and two comma club and your coaching business and everything. What what did it feel like with those? I think a lot of people from small towns like where you're from, where I'm from, can probably resonate with this. Like just the expectations for you to just do what's expected of you, right? Like the normal stuff. Like, yeah, it's a no brainer. You just jump into running the sawmill now. Like that's what you do. You don't have a choice. Um, what did that look like? Like, did you start doing that and then like get out? Like, what happened?
Yeah. So when I first moved there, um, I had a city mindset, and it
Yeah,
was just because where I'd grown up. So when I got to Illinois in that rural town, it was almost culture shock, and life was a lot slower than I was used to. School was smaller, things like that. And as I looked around, as I was getting older, it's like I see why people stay here is because they become very complacent, and it's
yeah,
like they stay in their fishbowl and never leave because they know nothing else. And so for me, I felt like it was a little different because I had been other places and seen other things. And I knew that that's not where I wanted to be long term. Um, I kind of, after I had been out of school, I started working in the timber just because that's kind of what was expected of me.
Yeah.
And it was cool because at the beginning, because I was used to working, for an hourly wage. And when I
Mhm.
first started working in the timber, it was like you get paid on a per day basis. So it's more for what you do. And I was like, wow, I can make decent money doing this. So
Yeah.
over the course of years doing it, it was like, all right, now this is your responsibility, Dustin. You do this. And that was what was expected of me, just to continue that kind of legacy of now you're running the sawmill, you're owning things, you need to make sure you're doing payroll, handle all of this stuff, and we're
Mhm.
gonna kind of step back. And they were all older, more or less wanting to retire. So yeah, it was expected of me to kind of run things. Fast forward a little bit, and it wasn't for me. Like I knew I
Yeah.
wanted more, wanted something more. And so I would look into the future at it's like, okay, what are they doing now? Because that's kind of what my life will look like if I keep doing the same thing.
Yeah.
So they're older. It's like I don't see them with a ton of money. I see them still at 65 years old, driving log trucks, things like that. And it's like I refuse for that to be me. I want more. I always have.
And how
So
old are you at this point?
So I was probably 25.
Okay.
Yeah, I was about 25.
Okay.
Looking for other avenues. I'm like, what can I do? So I always had a passion for fitness. And I had that conversation with my wife because at that age I had 2 kids. And it's like, do you mind if I go and do something different? And she said, it's totally up to you. So I did. Went, got certified through NASM and went and got a job at an in-person gym. Um, Quickly realized it wasn't for me.
Mhm.
The hours were longer. I made way less money. And, I thought I was going to be helping people get in better shape, training them, stuff like that. They threw me at the front desk. It's like, cool, you're pretty good at sales. Anyone that walks in, sign them up on a membership. It's like, dude, this is not what I signed up for.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's kind of where my fitness journey, coaching aspect began, was right there.
Right. So I didn't know. I thought all of this happened, I guess, 5 years earlier, right? Because you and your wife had kids when you were around like 20, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So you already had 2 kids. You had a good paying job, but you didn't really like the future that was going to hold for you. And you took the leap to really, and what a lot of people would say, like a big step back, right? To go kind of start over ground zero in a new industry, and you get stuck behind the desk. What made you evolve from that desk position, or what was the next choice that led you towards the online realm of coaching?
So, when I was in the gym, I quickly realized it wasn't for me. So I started looking at other options. And Alex Ramosi does a really good job when he explains things. And he had a reel that I saw, I want to say it was about 6 months ago. And it just like, it hit me really hard because I think it's so relatable to any entrepreneur, anybody working in 9 to 5, things like that. And so anytime I hear something like that, I try and relate it back to my life. And I look at, not just a snippet of my current life, but the overall journey. And he talks about know when to push versus when to pivot. And
Yeah.
it's like, am I doing what I need to be doing right now? Should I continue to push? Or is this something that I'm not really passionate about? I'm just doing it because I feel like I have to. So I need to pivot. So then at that point in time, I knew that's not what I really wanted to do. I was just trying to make a paycheck at that point in time. So I was always looking for my next pivot. Do I need to go back to the timber? Do I go crying back to, my stepdad and him, hey, I made a mistake. Please take me back. I was too egotistical. I'm like, I refuse for that to happen. I don't care what I
Yeah.
have to do. I'm going to do something. Um, and so I had saw an ad on Facebook, and this is back in 2014.
Hmm.
And it was about gym launch. And he was talking about a hybrid model of working in a gym and being an online fitness trainer. And it kind of resonated with me. I'm like, that's super cool. Like, how's that even possible? Because back then, like being an online trainer wasn't a huge thing.
Yeah.
And so I had a conversation. Again, knew nothing about sales. The guy pitched me really hard, and I paid an uncomfortable amount of money to kind of learn the skills to be an online trainer. And it was very, very difficult because at the time, and again, full transparency, like I left a job that I knew I was comfortable at making decent money. I went
Yeah.
and got I was an in-person trainer. So at this point in time in our life, I was trying to keep food on the table for the family. My wife didn't work. Her car got repoed. I was trying to do whatever I could to make it work
Hmm.
financially. So us paying that amount of money was very, very scary because it's like I have no choice. I have to make this work.
Yeah.
And oftentimes I think that was really the driving force behind it. And so, a mentor of mine always told me, looking back, I'm one of those people that perform best when my back's on the wall. That's just me in general, always
Yep.
have been. And so, whenever you make a plan B, you're already planning for plan A to fail. So, never do that. Like, this is
Hmm.
the only option, and just put 100% effort into it. And that's what I did. And so, that was kind of my online foundation, I guess you could say, is where it started.
Yeah. So you hired the mentor. You saw an ad, then you hired a mentor, and then you you started to train people online, or were you doing the hybrid model that he was kind of talking about?
Yeah, so I didn't have enough money to be able to. I was driving like an hour for my commute to the gym,
Okay.
and I didn't have enough money to continue doing that, wasting all of my time and do the online thing. So I just went all in online.
Got it.
I would wake up super early, watch as many videos in the course that I could, got
Hmm.
on every call that I could to kind of learn. And that was just kind of what I started doing. I was charging people $80 for like a 12-week program of fitness and nutrition. And everything I did was like through an Excel spreadsheet via email. There wasn't an app or nothing I was using.
Yeah.
Um, and my mentor at the time said, "What's your goal? What do you need to make every month?" I told him, I would like to be at like $3,000 every month to be able to cover my bills.
Yeah.
And he said, "Well, which do you think is easier? Is it easier for you to charge $300 and go out and find 10 people? Or is it easier for you to charge $3,000 and go find one person?" I was like, "Definitely one person at $3,000. He said, "Well, then why
Hmm.
aren't you doing that?" And so that shifted my mindset. And so that's what I started going to chase. And the very first client I landed at $3,000 for online fitness, I was like, okay,
Yeah.
something big is about to happen. I just need to figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah. So you ramped up. I mean, that's a significant increase from the $80 for 12 weeks that you were previously charging. Um,
Right.
Mike talks about a similar story when he first signed his first like marketing agency client for 5,000, and he was like, "What did I just do?" They just said yes, right? And I feel like a lot of coaches, especially, feel that they get their first paid in full or even their first client period that is paying the 300 to 350 a month that we see in the market versus the maybe $50 a month that they've been charging. So you got that first client right for $3,000. How did you, because you scaled your fitness business to a huge level. So I want to kind of talk through, because I'm always interested in like the different growing pains and the different like the things that you kind of go through while scaling a business of that size. What were the first evolutions, right? So like you got your first few clients and then you realize like I'm gonna be capped out here pretty soon. I bring on X person. Like how did that kind of stair step into a multi-million-dollar coaching business?
Sure. So there's always a different level of awareness, and there's always another bottleneck. And so in the beginning, when I grabbed that first client and I saw that it was actually possible to charge that,
Yeah.
I said, going forward, the only thing I'm doing is having as many conversations with people as possible. Now, again, for context, this is back in 2015. DM
Yeah.
strategy worked really well back then. So I just started sending messages to my current network, friends, family, anyone that needed help in fitness. There was no niching down, none of that back then. So it was a little different marketplace, but that's all I did. I would send message upon message. I was calling as many people as I could. And once I started hitting that 10 or 12K mark, I'm like, okay, now something different's got to happen because there's only one of me and I'm
Yeah.
running very thin on time. Um, so I had enough money. I was like, I need to look for somebody that's kind of been able to do something similar. So again, look for another mentor, hired another coach to kind of tell me what it is that I need to do. And we only really have two types of currencies. It's either we're paying with time or we're paying with money. I can always make more money, but I can never make more time. So I've been the type of person that, it's hard in the beginning when you don't have a ton of disposable income, but as you start making it, I'm always reallocating some of that money back to learning. I would much rather pay someone that's done what it is that I'm trying to do so that I can get there faster.
Hmm.
So that's what I've done. Once I got to that 12, 15K mark a month, is like, what's my next steps? How do I make this bigger? And so what I did was is I started finding someone that was in the fitness space that absolutely had that burning desire to help people. And I hired them as a coach. They started
Yeah.
doing all of my client fulfillment. It allowed me to go back to doing what I want to do, getting people on the phone, having conversations. And that was kind of the beginning. And then I just continued to repeat the process as I started growing. So if you want to, once I hit that 50K mark, it's like, how can I kind of step back and not do anything? Like, I just
Yeah.
want to be the CEO. My wife was getting aggravated. Kids didn't see me as much. I lived in the
Hmm.
office, and that's not why I started a business. So then it was like, I started looking at like the C-level things. I need a COO. I need a CFO. They can handle all the finances, the payments, all of that stuff. And again, it's just repeating the same process. It's like, have a VA to send all the messages, have an assistant coach to do check-ins, have a head coach to hold everyone accountable, have a team community member so that they can do all of the group posts, they can manage all of that stuff. That way you can nurture people that are in your group.
Yeah.
And then you're just multiplying that as you continue to grow. So once I was doing like 125K a month in revenue, I kind of wanted to put a cap on it. I didn't really want to grow any faster.
Hmm.
I was super comfortable and I just kind of sat back. 2 years into being an online fitness coach, we did like 1.3, 1.4 million in revenue.
Yeah.
Um, and I was like, I started my coaching business because I wanted to make more money. I thought that it was going to bring me some type of happiness. We all have this pipe dream of, I can buy this big ass house. I can have these
Yeah.
nice cars. I can have all this stuff and I'll just be happy. Like, that's what I want. But at the end of the day, it's like when you get all that stuff, you're bored with it in 3 months. It's like, now what?
Hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
um, McLaren, that's what it was my dream car. Bought it. I literally had it for 4 or 5 months. I'm like, I hate this car. It's too small. Kids can't fit in it. So, get a house. And it's like, this is insane. Now we just have to have somebody clean it all the time. Let's
Hmm.
downsize. So I think that all of the happiness really comes from the internal. And I know that sounds super cliche, right? But
Yeah.
it does. Like being able to help people, being able to step out completely and just have a business that runs on autopilot. And you have all that freedom back to where it's like, I get to dictate what I do, when I do it, and how I want to do it. Like that's the goal that I always had.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's powerful. And it does take a lot of a lot of time to, I think, get to that place because you have to obviously build to a place where the other things are even an option first. And then you have to try out all the things. And then you have to come to that realization that everybody that's reached that level always says is like, there's really no lifestyle change or no substantial, I guess, fulfillment in lifestyle change from like making 15K a month to making 50K a month, like in your pocket, right? Like you're not going to get any happier past that point. And statistics even show, I think there's been some like recent studies that they've done that are like people, your happiness goes up with your income up to like 180 or 200K a year. And then beyond that, it's like, you really don't see any type of difference in someone's happiness. which is crazy, right? Because that's what we're all chasing, is like to be that person that's just like a hyper earner that can get whatever they want, whenever they want, and just, spend like crazy. How did your family, coming along with this kind of ride, you said there was a lot of times where you were like kind of chained to the office and you didn't get to spend as much time with them as you wanted to. How did Talk about navigating that during the kind of rise of the coaching business? How did that all play out? Because I think there's a lot of people inside of my listenership that struggle with that dichotomy of the grind mode and then focusing on the people around them as well.
So we all have this idea of the work-life balance, and I don't really think that that exists. I think that we, again, are the business owner, so we get to dictate what it is that we do.
Yeah.
And sometimes we have to take a step back when we get in that hyper focused state of like, I just want to grow or I just want to make money or whatever it is. For me personally, I'm a very hyper focused individual. It's like whatever I'm setting my target on, it's like that's what I'm doing until I obtain it.
Yeah.
And there was points in my life where I would literally just live on my phone sending messages or live in the office. It would be 16 hours a day. I wouldn't even realize what time it was. I would get up way before the kids went to school. 4 a.m. I'm sitting in the office. 9:30 or 10 o'clock, my wife would come down and open the door and be like, "Hey, are you coming to bed? Did you eat dinner?" I'm like, "No." And there was a point in time where my health really kind of took a hit. And
Hmm.
especially as a fitness trainer, we are a walking billboard of our business.
Yeah.
And so as that started going backwards, I'm like, okay, a change needs to happen. And so that's where I kind of adapted a workflow. And I sat down, and it's like the first thing that I need to make sure that I do is make sure myself and my family is priority first. So as I was creating my workflow, it's like I'm putting all of me and my family things on their neck or very
Hmm.
first, and I would put it in like purple. And then it's like, okay, what's the next priority item that has to be done that can't wait till tomorrow? I would stack that on there. And I think when I really dialed in that workflow and family became a non negotiable, it got better.
Yeah.
Um, because I started to have to say no when I would normally say yes. So it's like my workflow ends at this time, regardless of if there's a fire in the business or not. Like I'm done. I'm shutting my computer down. I'm not taking any more calls. The team can't reach me. Because if I didn't do that, I'm still going to be sending
Yeah.
messages in the middle of the night. Like that's just
Yeah.
what I would do. So I think just having that solid workflow and being like, look, this is where my workflow ends. And being honest with yourself, saying, I have to make this happen. And it's almost like fitness, like hold yourself accountable. And even though it's hard because you feel like you're not doing the money making activities that need done, it's
Yeah.
like you just got to stop yourself at some point in time.
You feel like you're letting yourself down, letting the business down. I know exactly what you're talking about. It became a problem. I had to stop wearing like my Apple Watch for a while, because I had I would get, a message from like an AR client, a message from a fitness client, a message from Mike, a message from the team, a message like nonstop all day, every day. And I still get all of those. Right. But I had it set to where like all my notifications would just pop up on my watch. And I was like, at the time, that was my favorite thing about my watch is I could kind of like, flip it over, look at the notification that I just got, see if it's something that I got to immediately respond to or not, which being similar to you, like I always immediately responded to it. And I was just like, this is awesome. Like, I know exactly what's happening with having to pull out my phone and then click on it and then go look at it. Like, I know I can just, I can gauge everything as it comes in. And there was one in particular day or time where my wife kind of was like, can you just like take that thing off? And I was like, what? She's like, can you just take your Apple Watch off? And I was like, why? It's not, how does this even affect you? And she's like, you look down at it 10 times a minute at least. Like you look down at it all the time, whether we're talking, whether we're doing something, whether like you always looking at that thing. And I hadn't realized that it was like had become like that compulsive. If this thing buzzes, I have to flip my wrist over and read what happened. Right. So I had to go on and switch off a bunch of notifications from a bunch of different apps and figure out like how can I make this to where only the highest priority things come through. And for a while, I didn't even do that. I just stopped wearing it altogether. I just started wearing like just like a one of the, a watch with gears on it, right? That doesn't have anything electronic. But that's a very real thing that a lot of people struggle with is in a hyper connected society, especially as business owners, it can make our inclinations to be always in the business so much worse, right? It's like feeding an addict. It's like putting just gas on the flame of just like an addict's desire to be what they're addicted to. Um, so I think it is extremely important to use the do not disturb features on our phones and laptops and watches. It's filter out things that are unnecessary, right? Like I don't need a notification every time I get a like on Instagram that's going to make me flip over my watch and be like, oh, like every time you post, it's just like it can be so much. So I think that's awesome that you figured that out pretty early and decided to shut off that, I guess, floodgate that was just getting to you every day. I don't know if do you know the business Pride Foods? You ever heard of Pride Foods? Okay, so
Haven't, no.
Sean Vasquez owns Pride Foods, and I had several people mention him as kind of like the blueprint for like a father and a husband. And Sean struggled with a lot of stuff early on in his kind of career, and even just in his childhood, he struggled with a lot of stuff with his family. But Sean always is kind of like looked to by all of his peers. He's one of Mike's really good friends as well. He's looked to by his peers as the blueprint for what they try to be. Sean shuts off, like he's in do not disturb mode by like 4:30 every single day. And if you try to message him after 4:30, then he will not get back to you until the next day. And so he draws like very, very firm lines in the sand. So I think it's important to do that.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And I agree with that. And there's a lady that her name is Melissa. She actually helped me with my fitness business exit. She said that she got to the point to where the first thing that she would do every morning when she woke up would be look at her phone,
Yeah.
check the notifications, check all of that stuff. And for me, like I enjoy morning time with my family. So like whether it's making breakfast for me and my daughter before she heads off for school or whatever it may be, even though I'm up earlier. So Melissa said that she got in the habit of where she wouldn't even put her phone in her room. She would leave her phone in the kitchen on a charger. That way, when she got up, she would do her normal routine upstairs or whatever it may be. And it wasn't, I need that dopamine hit or I need to go check messages right away.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of times, in the digital landscape, we get caught up in being consumers versus being creators at times.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it just comes from, living on that phone, scrolling, whether it's checking messages, Instagram notifications, whatever it may be, kind of like what you said. But
Hmm.
if there's, if you have a family or something like that, I think it's detrimental to have that shut off time because, in the beginning of me building businesses and stuff, we were on the verge of like getting a divorce just because I would always try and explain to my wife, I'm like, look, I'm trying to do this so that we have a better future. I'm trying to do
Yeah.
this
I'm
to
doing it
make
for
money.
you. Yeah.
Right. And in the beginning, she's like, I don't care about the money. I just want time with you.
Hmm.
And sometimes that's what your spouse or your kids actually want because they're not going to look back and go, oh, I remember we had this or we had that. It's gonna be like, no, I remember dad like was never around. He missed every softball game I ever had. He didn't come to any of my concerts or my
Yeah.
gymnastic tournaments or anything. And so I refused for that to happen. So as I got, was kind of slowly leveling up, it's like, no, like I've got to put this in play because I refuse to be that person.
Yeah. I had a very similar conversation with my wife, but also with a mentor that made me realize it. While I was going on another trip with Mike, and we she always does this thing where she gets mad at me before I'm about to go on a trip because it makes it easier on her if she's mad at me for me to leave. Which I'm sure I'll get some heat for saying that, but she I was trying to tell her like I told you that this is how it was gonna be. I told you that I was gonna have to like lock in and grind for a while, and like this is just what's got to happen. I'm doing this for us, like for you, and I was telling the mentor whenever we got out on our trip that I kind of like said that, or that was kind of like the argument and didn't really feel right to me. And he was like, "Well, did you ask her what she wanted?" I was like, "What do you mean? Like, did you ask her if she wants that? Wants what?" I'm like, and the guy's like, "Did you ask her if she wants you to sacrifice time with her now for a potential payoff in the future?" And I'm like, "Well, no, but that just makes sense, right?" And he's like, "No, because she might want the future to be 4 or 5 years later if that means that she gets more time with you now." And I was like, it completely just cut right through me. I broke down, was crying and everything, and it reshifted my sometimes now even she'll ask like, "Do you want to go work in the office together?" Right? And we set her up at a desk on the other side of the kind of whole podcast setup and everything. And so she's got her own like workspace. I've got my own workspace, and so we'll come in here together sometimes. But previously it was like she knew that she couldn't even bring me past like the room without me getting in here and getting caught up for 2 or 3 extra hours doing a bunch of other stuff. So I think it's an evolution that every business owner typically goes through if you really do enjoy just the world and the game of business. But it also is a necessary one for you to figure out what really means the most to you. Um, but you mentioned your exit from your fitness company. Tell Talk about kind of what that looked like, and what you knew that you were getting to a certain point of this wasn't really bringing you any more kind of utility or happiness. What happened from there?
So I got to the point where, I still love fitness, right? Work out consistently. But I got to the point where I wasn't in love with what I was doing anymore. I began to have more of a desire for the logistics, the business aspect of things, more so than just fitness. And so my CEO at the time reached out and was like, "Hey, would you ever consider, doing like a partnership or something like that?" And I kicked around the idea, and I didn't want a partnership. Like I had already built that. I kind of wanted my name on it. And so I said, "Hey, what about just an exit? Like if I exit, would you be open to purchasing it?"
Yeah.
And so that was the move. I wanted to go into doing more of like the consulting aspect of things. And it worked in a similar way to like, you know how it is when you first get into fitness. It's like you have friends asking, "Hey, like, can you make me a nutrition plan, or can you
Yeah.
help me lose a little bit of weight?" So very similar. As I started, doing well in online fitness, I had other fitness coaches reaching out. "Hey, can you like kind of show me what you did to get to where you are?" And I'm like, "Cool, yeah, we can do that." And I had more and more people reaching out doing that. And I'm like, wait a minute, there might be an option here to where I can
To ask for
replicate this
money.
business model and do the
Mhm.
same. So that's what I did. And I was enjoying that much more than doing the fitness stuff. So basically, I exited and pivoted and started just doing consulting for in person trainers that were wanting to go online, new online fitness coaches that were just kind of struggling, not really sure what to do, and absolutely loved it. Loved doing that. And so I took that same business model, replicated it, and I was like, I'm scaling this to the moon.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what got me into that field.
So what year did you kind of exit, and then what year did you go into coaching coaches?
So 2017 is when I completely exited my fitness business. Like I want to say like November 2017 is when the paperwork was finalized. And then I started just doing business coaching in 2018 full time. I was like
Wow,
all in.
that's awesome. Did you experience any kind of like imposter syndrome as you were getting into these spaces? Like obviously going from a sawmill into fitness, like did you have a point ever where you were like, is this can am I even capable of making it here?
Yeah, 100%. So,
Okay.
and like when I went into the online fitness space, when I was having that conversation with my mentor, and he was like, you know, why don't you just charge 3K for one client? And so as I was having those calls, I'm like, who is going to pay me $3,000? Like I'm
Yeah.
brand new. Like I don't even know, like, I don't know that much about fitness. Um, even though like we sometimes it's like, well, I'm in shape, I obviously know what to do, but can I get this individual results? I know my body, but I don't know theirs.
Yeah,
So when you're
yeah.
trying to charge that, it's you have to sell from a place of conviction. And if you aren't convinced that you're going to be able to get the results, you'll never be able to sign them up as a client, because if you won't believe in yourself, they're not going to believe in you. And that was a struggle that I had for a really long time. And even when I started landing those clients, an internal struggle. Like, okay, like what do I need to do to get this person results? They just paid me all of this money. Like I can't let them fail.
Mhm.
Um, and it's not necessarily just like a cash grab, because it was more than the money. It's like I want to get them results so that they'll stay with me long term, or they'll tell their friends and they'll bring them over with me. So that imposter syndrome or that self-doubt always lingers. And even when I shifted and pivoted into business coaching, it was the same. It's like I know that, I was able to grow an online fitness business. I can teach them, but what if it doesn't work for them? What if they don't learn the way that I learned? What if they don't
Yeah.
do the work that I did? So that thought is always there. And even now, there's different aspects that I deal with. Like for some of the VIP clients that I've worked with, it's like like my VIP client program that I used to have, I would help people that were they had to be at 75K a month in revenue, and
Mhm.
I would help them get to like 250 or 500K.
Mhm.
And so when they would come on, they have this high expectation of pay me a lot of money and me helping them get there. And it's like, what if their moving parts don't work like my moving parts did? You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's always there, regardless of where you're at. It's something that you just have to develop that mindset. And it's like, I got this. Like, I know what I need to do. I just need to do it. And
I
you just
think
got to
it's
tell yourself to shut up.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I think it's a very I think it's almost unavoidable in entrepreneurship, right? With you, I've said it a million times, and Hormozy, I think, puts it beautifully, which is who I'm always quoting, is like he always talks about you have to have that stack of undeniable proof, right? That you are who you say you are. But I heard a quote the other day that I wanted to kind of run by you around imposter syndrome, and it really ties exactly in with what you just described. So these are common traits of those with imposter syndrome. Anytime that they have a win, they attribute it to luck, circumstances, or effort. Okay. Anytime that when they see somebody else win, they attribute it to hard work. Right. So it's a complete misalignment internally, but I want to hear you kind of talk about that in relevance to your situation. It's like, what were you observing about yourself and why it was like making you doubt you versus what you were observing in other people?
Yeah. So that's spot on. Love that. And you're right. So, for example, going back to the very beginning, because that's where I had the most imposter syndrome, trying to figure out what works. And it's like that very first client that I sold at 3,000, 100%. I'm like, no, like that was luck. That'll never happen again. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Um, but then you see other people doing it and you're like, man, they're super good at what they do. Like they're an
Hmm.
awesome salesperson to be able to do that. And so even as you go through business and you continue to grow, you still have those feelings about it just being luck. Man, I got super lucky. Like that was luck.
Yeah.
Versus other people, it's like, how are they so good at what they do? Like, how can they create content like that? How are they able to do this? And I think that we get caught up in the ultimate thief of joy in the entrepreneur space will definitely be playing the comparison game,
Yeah.
right? And I had
100%.
a mindset coach that I was to the point where I was literally about to just shut down everything, because when your home life's not right, it doesn't seem like anything else works right. And this is when I was grinding, trying to make things work. Me and my wife were at each other all the time. Kids never really saw me. And I had a conversation with her and I was like, look, like I know I'm making a little bit of money. I'm not making what I want to make, but I think I'm just going to go back to the 9 to 5. I don't think I'm built for, to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And she said, why do you think that? And I said, because I've been doing this for the last 6 months and I'm still not at, $50,000 a month. I see all these other people that are absolutely crushing it.
Hmm.
And I just don't think I can keep up. She said, never compare your chapter 2 to someone else's chapter 20.
Yeah.
You don't know what their road looks like. You don't know how long they've been in business. You don't know the backstory. And so when she told me that, like, that was super powerful for me. And I still incorporate just that small aspect of things in a lot of different businesses that I do.
Yeah.
And, playing that comparison game will absolutely just shut you down completely. And it makes you feel super defeated when, again, like, you can't compare your chapter 2 to someone else's chapter 20.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic, and that's kind of the one you hear, right? When in terms of the quotes of the comparison game, and it's so true, right? It's just we all look around, especially on social media, being such a highlight reel, and we as entrepreneurs, as a collective, are really bad about it being a highlight reel for us too, and just showing like all the best things, all the cool things about entrepreneurship. And my favorite entrepreneurs to follow, honestly, are the ones that show like the really shitty months, the ones that show like this is what sometimes the reality is it's me, working at midnight because I have something that I have to get done. Then I have something tomorrow with my family or with my wife or whatever that I have to take care of. Um, or hey, sometimes you don't get paid, right? Because you got to make sure everyone else eats because you're in charge and it's your responsibility. Doing $1 million in multiple businesses now, what does that really mean for the entrepreneur, right? Because that's kind of like this dream number that everyone's kind of like chasing. It's first it's the 10K a month, which for whatever reason has just been like highly romanticized in everybody's ads and everybody's copy and all that stuff. But then it's like, 10K a month, that's gonna put me into the six figures, but how do I get $1 million company? What does that really mean for you as the entrepreneur? Like, how does that, I guess, feel? You got the two comic club plaques, but like, how does that feel? And like, what is the equation there between I'm making $1 million in my business and a lot of people are like, wow, he's a millionaire, right? And you might be because you own the business because that's the assets, but like, what do you feel like a millionaire doing $1 million?
No. So again, like, full transparency, like, my goal is always 1 million a month. Like,
Yeah.
that's the number that I want to be at.
Mm,
And in the beginning, it's like, yes, I want to make $1 million. What you don't understand, well, what we don't understand early on in business is that just because you make $1 million doesn't mean you have $1 million, right?
yeah.
So it's like, cool, I made $1 million. Well, now I really only have 500,000 because the other 500,000 went to taxes.
Yeah.
Now I've got all of these salaries that I have to pay because I decided to scale really fast and not have the infrastructure in place, or not understand how to put people on a commission base versus on being a salary.
Yep.
Um, and again, like, it's all about just going through trial and error. And at the end of the day, it's like, I'm big on reverse engineering stuff. So it's like, what is the number that I want to make every month? And then it's like, this is my number. This is what I'm going to pay myself. And so everything else after that, I'm able to delegate those tasks and use that money to pay them. And then the business needs X amount of funds as well. There's there's a book called Profit First, and it talks about how to structure an actual business. And I've never had a mentor really break down on building a business, how to handle the financial aspect of things, how to separate your funds so you're not commingling funds between accounts, things like that. And he goes through this book and he breaks down how you need 12 separate bank accounts. You can set it up to where it works as a funnel system, to where it's like, okay, this is how much money out of this amount of money is being allocated to marketing. This is going to, operations. This is going to this. And then at the end, you are the last person to get paid. So going back to what you mentioned, there's been a lot of times where it's like I made 15, 20,000 a month in the business, but me as an individual made nothing.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of context around that people really don't understand until you get there. And it's like, 1 million a month is awesome and all, but it all depends on what the back office and the back systems look like. How many team members are there? What are you paying them? Are we paying A players or are we paying C level players? And that was a big mistake that I made a lot going through business, is that I would always try and hire um, I wouldn't say cheap, but I would try and save as much money and pinch pennies as possible.
Yeah.
When in actuality, it cost me a lot more. So it's easier to hire like a 7 and pay them what they're worth to get them to a 10 versus paying someone that's a 3, paying them, a little less money and then only get them to like a 6 because they're not going to perform at the rate that you can perform.
Yeah.
So
It sounds like you did a good job though of hiring specifically to buy back your time rather than just hiring because you think that's a hire that you need. And I'm sure there were some different things that happened that made you to learn that right early on. But there is another great book called "Buy Back Your Time" by Dan Martell. I don't know if you read that or not, but it's a fantastic book, and I got a lot of really good frameworks and stuff from there as far as hiring. And he talks a lot in there about like the only goal when you're hiring somebody for any position is it going to buy back my time or the time of another employee that I need their time freed up. You don't ever buy to add additional things to them, right? Like you buy for them to take over something that's on your plate so that you can focus on the additional things. Because ultimately, you as the entrepreneur, or you as the business owner, or the person as the manager needs to be the one that takes on the additional things so that you can build out SOPs and best practices for you to do those things. Then someone else you can buy back your time with somebody else later on that takes on these additional things. But I to me, what I'm hearing you say is it sounds like that is kind of the secret to scale is figuring out the right players that you need for the right team that you need in order to get to where you want to be. And starting from that number first allows you to kind of figure out and allocate, okay, by this step, I should be spending X amount on payroll, X amount on marketing, X amount on, operations, and I should be here, right? And then now we're measuring benchmarks against what we projected backwards versus what we're trying to project forward when it's uncharted territory and we don't really know what we're headed towards.
yeah, 100%, 100%. It's so much easier to work backwards than it is to try and work in a forward direction. It's like
Yeah,
always, no matter what I do, I always start with the end goal in mind and then work backwards. It's like, all right, I want to make X amount of dollars. How do I get there? How many sales calls do I have to take in order to get there? What's my close percentage have to be? Now, how many messages do I have to send or how many conversations do I have to have X amount of sales calls? And then you just keep working it that way. And then then I'm able to structure or delegate, okay, this is my metric because business is essentially just a big math problem. And when you
yeah,
understand the metrics behind it, it becomes a lot easier to be able to hit the end goal. And so it's like, I'll tell my team, hey, this is your KPIs. If we aren't making these KPIs, we're not going to be any closer to that end goal. And then I'll set a weekly goal, a 3-month goal, a 6-month goal, and then a long-term goal. And again, I reverse engineer that. So it's like at the end of every week, if I know we're short on certain KPIs, we're going to either have to pick up the slack or we're way behind already from that end goal.
yeah. Wow, that's awesome. What do you think made you? I know you have some different like theories and ideologies that you try and like work into just your mindset, right? What do you think made you or guided you the most, or made you just different in your journey to get you to kind of like these heights in business?
So I think that a lot of it had to do with just the athlete in me or from playing sports in the beginning and just having that discipline um, kind of instilled in me from being young and having that no quit attitude type thing. And I guess I can, thank my parents for a lot of that. But it was, if I started something, I had to finish it. That's how it was
Yeah.
growing up. Whatever it was, if it was sport or if it was band, if it was basketball, football, whatever it was, they wouldn't let me quit. And there were several sports that I wanted to go and play. I started it and I'm like, I hate this. Like football,
Yeah.
for example. I remember I was like 7 years old, wanted to play Pee Wee football, pouring down rain. It hurt. I was tired. We practiced all the time. All I wanted to do was quit, but my stepdad at the time wouldn't let me. And after the end of the season, I'm like, I love this. Like, this is awesome.
Hmm.
So then I played every year after that. And so looking at it from a business aspect, there were so many times that I wanted to quit. Again, going back to that mindset coach that I had mentioned, that helped me tremendously. And so even when I became a business coach, I wanted a mindset coach on my staff that were able to have those hard conversations with people for when they became on the fence or they wanted to quit. Because if my mentor that I hired didn't have that mindset coach available, who knows where I would have been? I would have probably gone back to the damn sawmill and regretted the rest of my life.
Yeah.
So I think that just that discipline and that no quit mentality, again, like not making a plan B, it's like, this is my only option. This is what I'm going to do. I have to figure out how to make it work.
Yeah. Yeah, I resonate with that a lot. I was an athlete growing up too, and it there's a huge parallel I think between the physical and the things inside of really just life in general, but business especially, because there's a lot of spots where you can get punched in the mouth, and you just got to keep going. Um, and you can the parallels are just endless, right? Like it's the more that you practice, right, the more reps you get in, the better you're going to be in the game. Same thing with business. The more reps you put into your sales calls or into your ads or into your copy that you make or into your time with your employees or your meetings, the better you're going to get. And sometimes you're gonna have injuries too, right? Like sometimes you're gonna have things that happen inside the business that it might hemorrhage some money. It might, things might be super big setbacks that kind of set you back for a few months where you got to kind of work on healing it or addressing the issue and work it out. And it's there are very, very, very strong parallels between the physical and the mental, and then the mental and really what it takes to be successful in business is what I've kind of come to the conclusion of. I know another big thing that you having earned as much money as you have earned or generated inside of the just the game of business, one thing that you and I had talked about previously is you've gotten pretty heavy into real estate. And the story that I thought was most interesting is kind of like the first story. I don't know if this was your first real estate thing or not, but the story of the tattoo parlor.
Yeah. So that's definitely it's a good story, but it was a horrible experience.
I
Right.
bet so. We might have to have you show the tattoo.
Yeah. No, that's not happening. That's
Okay.
not happening. Uh, so yeah, essentially we relocated to Alabama. It's been a little over a year ago now. But the reason why we came to Alabama was my family still lives in Georgia. They've always been in real estate. She owned a commercial like complex, and inside that commercial complex was a tattoo shop. And she was like, "Hey guys, I have this awesome tattoo shop. You guys should come down sometime and visit and check it out." I'm like, "Yeah, we can do that." Loves supporting small businesses, especially when it's family.
Mhm.
And me being me, like my wife and I, we get several tattoos. I was like, who's the artist and how good are they? Oh, he's one of the best artists in Alabama. I'm like, cool. We'll make the trip down this weekend. So we drove 14 hours, got down here. I already had a plan because I keep tattoos saved on my phone because I always have one that I want.
Yeah.
And I showed him what it was. I'm like, this is what I want. He's like, this is going to take some time. I'm like, cool. I got all weekend. Sat down. It was probably 12 hours of straight tattooing, very minimal breaks. I get done. I get up. I look in the mirror, and I wanted to turn around and punch the dude in the face. It was absolutely a wreck.
Well, he was
And
nodding off during the thing, right?
yeah, yeah. And like as he was doing it, because like I was laid forward around a chair, and like I can feel the machine on my back, and it was like touch and go, touch and go. And so I kind of looked, and he's like falling asleep. And granted, like we started about, you know, for anyone that's gotten a tattoo, sometimes it will take a long period of time. I'm saying
Yeah.
it was a Saturday. We probably started at, I don't know, noon, and it was probably 1 o'clock in the morning at this point in time.
Jeez.
Yeah. And so he was nodding off. I was super pissed when I got up and saw my back. And my aunt and I had already had a conversation in regards to, would you be open to purchasing this? And so as soon as I see my tattoo, I went over, had a conversation with my aunt. I was like, I'm buying it. I was like, I want to buy the whole complex. She was like, "What made you change your mind?" I'm like, "Doesn't matter. Just sell it to me." So right there, I handed her the check, signed the paperwork, walked back over to the tattoo shop. I was like, "Get the fuck out."
Just bought the building to fire the dude. That's so
But yeah.
that
And,
is so crazy.
that was like my that was like my FU move for sure
Yeah.
for him. But that's where I've always wanted to be. I wanted to be in that position to where I have that FU money
Yeah.
to where it's like
That's
when
everybody's
stuff
dream.
like that happens. Yeah.
Yeah. That's sick. So what's your philosophy with real estate, right? Like I guess in just investments in general, I think Dan Fleshman's talk at the event last week really opened me up to my wife works in finances. So we do a lot of things. We have a lot of financial vehicles and stuff that we park our money, but we haven't gotten into real estate yet. What what what's your philosophy just in general with investing, I guess, as an entrepreneur and specifically with real estate? What's kind of guided your decision making there?
So I love investments. I think that understanding what's a cash flow positive investment is important,
Hmm.
um, because at the end of the day, your money tucked under your mattress isn't going to make you more money. And I like real estate for the simple fact that the marketplace is forever changing. And I never see the real estate market going to where single family homes, duplexes are just going to like crash in price.
Yeah.
So I think this is only going to increase in value. So as you start purchasing those things, you can purchase a single family home depending on what town it is for like 100K. Once you make that investment, turn around and do what's called, so like there's something called a burr method. So like buy, rehab, rent, and you're basically putting $100,000 in. Maybe it's a distressed property, you got to put 20K in it. So you're 120 in. Now you can turn around and rent that same property out for like 1,200 a month, and
Hmm.
you're going to continually make money off of that. And even if you're in a position where it's like, I don't have 120K liquid, that's
Yeah.
okay. You can go and finance that from a bank. They'll definitely give you the loan. That mortgage payment that whomever's making, or the rent payment that they're making, is going to cover not only that cost, but it'll also put a little bit of money in your pocket every month. And over the course of time, now that house is free and clear. So if you continue to do that, like start with a goal, it's like, hey, I want X amount of properties in this amount of time. And when you're able to do that, the goal would be able to, now I'm a little older. I have like a financial nest egg of some kind. So no matter what happens in whatever my business ventures may be, I know
Hmm.
that I have this portfolio in real estate that I can always rely on if something crazy happens. So
Yeah.
like my grandparents, they've always been in real estate. He used to own a brokerage, and they've always had nice stuff, even when I was growing up, always. And now that they're older, I want to say they're in their 80s. Um, they haven't worked for a very, very long time. And they
Yeah.
have like 15 rental houses. They make like 15K a month because all their houses are paid off, and they don't have to do anything. So like that's a goal. Um, so that's kind of, I guess, why I chose real estate, is just because I've seen a lot of the investments over my life, and it's always seemed like a smart move.
Yeah. That makes sense. So what does your portfolio look like now? Is it mostly single family homes and duplexes like you mentioned? Do you have many more commercial type properties like what you bought in I think you said it was Alabama?
Yeah, so no, I'm good on the commercial aspect. Commercial is a different world
Yeah.
because it comes down to like location, the businesses that are in the area, things like that. And I think that was more or less just like a FU move, right?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
knew nothing. I didn't know the territory, and I ended up losing my ass on that commercial property. I sold it, and I didn't lose any money, but I basically broke even when I got rid of it.
Yeah.
Um, Single family homes are definitely the move. I do like duplexes as well. So like you can get a duplex. Let's see, I want to say I have like 12. There's like 12 single families and then 5 duplexes. Um, that are there currently, right? And
Gotcha.
so my goal
And
is that,
what's your goal is to make like after paying the mortgage, is it to make 20% per month or what is what's a KPI for what you're looking for out of a return on those?
Sure. So what it is when it comes in, it depends how much rehab the property needs at the beginning. So like I'll never put in more than like 50K in rehab. It just doesn't
Hmm.
there's not a good return there. So I'll try and stay under that key mark. And then once you kind of grow a network, I have tons of people that will reach out to me and they're like, "Hey, there's this distressed property here or whatever. Let me know and I can send you the comps on it." Right.
Yeah.
And so it's important to find something that has decent comps. And then I always want to be like that 700 uh, positive every month after mortgage. And then goal is to be able to exit that. And I'm trying to add like 3 a year so that by the time I'm done, I want to be at like that 50 number and just be like, cool, like I'm done.
Got it. So $700 positive, right?
Yeah.
Per month after
Yeah.
mortgage. And then comps are comparable properties.
Correct. Yeah. So like when we're looking at like even if you go out and we're looking at a mortgage, like you're looking to get a mortgage on a home, they're going to pull the comps. So like what's a comparable property value to the houses around the area that's very
Hmm.
very similar. So like if it's a 4.3, and there's an acre or something like that, it's going to pull comparables in that same zip code or around that same town that's the same. So like a 4.3 or whatever it may be. And then they're
Hmm.
going to price the value of that home based off the median of every other home in the area.
Got
So
it.
it's super important for the resale value for the future.
So that kind of gives you just a perspective of here's what's possible, here's what should happen based on just market value in the area.
Yeah, 100%. So like when my wife and I moved here, we sold our house. So like we when we bought the house, we put a privacy fence in the backyard. It already had a pool. I went through and it had a 2-car garage. I epoxied the floor in the garage. It looked super good.
Hmm.
I really didn't want to move. We did a ton of landscape for curb appeal, and then we
Yeah.
listed the house. And every other house had been sitting on the market for a long period of time. We listed that house thinking that it was going to sit for like a month. It was on the market literally 2 days. We got an offer that was over asking price. We sold it. We moved to Alabama. That lady lived there for, I don't know, maybe 6 months. And she put solar panels on the roof. So basically, she was trying to do a fix and flip. She put solar panels on the roof and then she listed it for like 50 more than what she purchased it for. And it's just sitting. Like it's
Yeah.
just been sitting.
Yeah, my father-in-law is like super against the solar panel thing. They
Yeah.
the and it's big in Texas too because they'll like a lot of those companies will come in and like I don't know how it works, but they'll come in and like pay you to put their solar panels up. And it's yeah, it's a lot of people just view them as kind of eyesores, and that's probably why in Alabama, of all places, that's probably still sitting there.
Yeah.
Um, well, dude, I I know for me it's just fun to kind of hear these things and hear all the things that you've accomplished and everything that you've kind of done and what you're doing with it now, and then now even just getting to work with you inside of AR, it's been an absolute blast. So I always ask one question towards the end that I ask of everybody, and that is, what are you, Dustin, going to accomplish by any means necessary?
Definitely self mastery. And I know that there's a lot of context on that, but
Hmm.
something that I've always worked on, since I was even younger is just being able to control my emotions because I've realized that when I'm able to control my emotions and not let them get the best of me, everything seems to just work out in my favor and goes a
Yeah,
lot smoother. Whether it's in business, whether it's in my day to day, getting angry and making a decision out of emotion only makes things worse. So that's something that I've really been working on. Whether it's breath work in the morning, just trying to learn to control my emotions and my thoughts, and think before I ever act on anything. So that's something that I'm just going to continue to work on forever until I really get it dialed in.
yeah, I love that. I love that. That's the first time we've heard anything like that. It's I had a breathwork facilitator on probably a month ago now, and I've done a few different breathwork journeys with him specifically, and breathwork's an extremely powerful modality. Um, Cold and heat exposure are something that I don't mind the heat so much, but I really hate the cold. So that's like kind of a way of me kind of self-disciplining myself. Like I took one before the episode today. I try to take them before most episodes. I took like a cold shower, and it's something that makes you kind of like acknowledge the fears and the excuses and the things that the reasons that you shouldn't do something like that. And then when you force yourself into it, it is kind of like okay, I'm not gonna die. I'm gonna be all right. Like all your alarm bells are going off. Like we just got to make it through this. Go, let's do a few minutes. And that's something I think that's helped me too with kind of calming down. But I definitely have to work on the self mastery thing, because it's, as you know, and as we know as entrepreneurs, it's a bunch of ups and downs, and so you have to be able to ride that and not kill yourself doing it.
Yeah, 100%. Nothing in this life is linear. Everything is a roller coaster. So might as well
Absolutely.
prepare for it the best we can.
100%. Well, dude, I really appreciate your time today. I know you're a busy guy, especially hopping on a Saturday. So I hope you have a great rest of your day, and thank you so much for just taking the time to hang out.
Awesome, man. Yep, I appreciate it. It's been a blast as always.
Thanks, Dustin.
Yep, see ya.
Guys, thank you so much if you made it this far. I really appreciate you taking the time to listen to the entire episode. I just want to remind you, if you got anything, right, super value out of the episode, even if it's just a timestamp or a certain sentence or a certain thought, send that to a friend, share it with them, share the episode. That's the only way that we're going to grow. We don't do any ads or anything for the podcast. We don't put any money behind it. We haven't taken on any sponsorships or anything like that. So the only way that it's going to grow right now is just by word of mouth. So if you got something out of it, it would mean the world to me if you wanted to just share that with one person, and hopefully they get something out of it as well. Hopefully you guys enjoyed Dustin and I's talk as much as I did. It's just super cool talking to people that have done the numbers that he's done the things that he's done. A 2 Club, we didn't even really expand on that too much, but that's something that you get from the company ClickFunnels, which is like the biggest funnel building company in the world, right? We're coming for that with AR. But when somebody makes over $1 million through one funnel, they get a 2 Club plaque, and it's like a big plaque that's got like gold records or platinum records on it. And you saw that like the bottom of it behind him. And anyways, he just has a very, very calm nature about him, but he has just done some absolutely savage things in the business world. And it's just cool for me to be able to see that, and just, eventually want to get there myself. So hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope you guys will come back for more episodes. I promise you don't want to miss the ones that we have coming up. We've got a really a Twitch streamer that's really popping off right now. We've got a few more entrepreneurs and some really cool people on the horizon. So if you don't want to miss that, make sure that you subscribe if you're watching on YouTube, or follow the show if you're on any type of audio platform, so you can come back and you can get notified whenever those drop on the Mondays that they drop. Appreciate you guys. Hope you have a great rest of your day. See you soon.